Hi there, I'm Diane Colman and this short video is about the importance of the ANZUS alliance in Australian defence policy. Since its inception, settled Australia has been a nervous country, far from its motherland, a small population occupying a vast continent in a region teeming with culturally distinct people. The tenuous economic and cultural hold over this huge territory has meant a fragility in terms of security. This has meant defence strategies have been dominated by the necessity for a great and powerful ally for protection. Traditionally, this was the UK. Australia was part of the mighty British Empire and relied on Britain for its defence. But then the fall of Singapore to the Japanese in World War II demonstrated that our traditional protector no longer had power in the region. With the homeland under direct threat, Australia turned to America, which proved to be an invaluable wartime ally. After the war ended, with Britain in decline, Australia sought to formalise its relationship with what had become the world's predominant military power. This formal relationship between Australia and the US has endured for 70 years now. Let's see how the ANZUS alliance has become the most enduring feature of the Australian security environment. The basis of the alliance is the formal defence treaty. The treaty formed part of the negotiations of a peace treaty with Japan after its defeat in World War II. Australia sought to ensure its security against a resurgent Japan, hoping to supplement or replace Britain as an ally, but the US was reluctant to take up a role as Australia's protector. With the communist takeover of China and the outbreak of the Korean War, the US wanted to secure a lenient treaty with Japan in order to use Japan as a safeguard against the spread of communism. For Australia to accede to this, it bargained for US agreement to an alliance. And so the ANZUS Treaty was signed by Australia, New Zealand and the United States on the 1st of September 1951. The treaty begins with a statement that the parties desire to declare publicly and formally their sense of unity so that no potential aggressor could be under the illusion that any of them stand alone in the Pacific area. But the treaty is considered a soft treaty as far as providing a security guarantee for Australia. It does not specifically require the United States to provide military support to Australia in a crisis. Instead, it requires each nation to consult together whenever, in the opinion of any of them, the territorial integrity, political independence, or security of any of the parties is threatened in the Pacific and act to meet the common danger in accordance with its constitutional processes. Put simply, this is a commitment to consult. An act to meet the common danger might include the supply of resources or diplomatic involvement, as well as armed intervention if necessary. While the benefits of the alliance were clear to policymakers, this absence of a hard security guarantee by its much more powerful ally has had significant implications for Australia over time. Let's see what those benefits and cost implications entail. Firstly, the basic sentiment of the ANZUS Treaty has contributed to Australia's sense of security in the region. The fact that the treaty exists provides a deterrent to any potential aggressors, but still the unspecified action that the US might take should Australia be under threat, the very vagueness of the treaty has meant that successive Australian governments have been anxious to prove over and over again our loyalty and our dependability as an ally. This has led to Australian involvement in US-led wars in Korea, Vietnam, the Persian Gulf, Afghanistan, in Iraq, which might not have much to do with the national interest. Still, this military collaboration means that Australia has preferential access to US military equipment and technology, giving us a high-tech edge in the region. At the same time, the ever-increasing cost of keeping up with US tech can be difficult for the relatively limited resources of Australia. As well as access to technology, ANZUS also provides Australia with regular access to US policymakers, allowing Australia's voice to be heard in Washington. Being an ally of the US also allows Australia to project its influence further than its size would otherwise warrant. but this can also make us more of a target, as Australia can be seen as a compliant ally acting on behalf of the US as its deputy sheriff in the region. Since the ANZUS Treaty was signed in 1951, Australia has never been directly threatened. Whether this is due to the implied US support through the treaty, to Australia's secure, affordable supply of minerals to the region, or to Australia's strategic insignificance depends on your point of view. It's ironic that despite being in operation for nearly 70 years, the ANZUS Treaty has only been formally invoked once for Australia to come to the aid of an attacked America. Then Australian Prime Minister John Howard did this in 2001 as a response to the September 11 terrorist attacks in New York and Washington, leading to Australia's involvement in the United States-led War on Terror. It wasn't necessary to invoke the treaty, as we fought beside America before, and the attacks on the US Atlantic seaboard are outside the treaty area of the Pacific. But emotions were running high given Howard was in Washington to commemorate the 50-year anniversary of the treaty, so ANZUS was on his mind. For the US, the Australian alliance is one of many and by no means the most important, but Australia's US alliance is unquestionably its single most important security relationship. While ideas about how closely Australia and US interests are aligned vary, with some leaders doggedly mirroring US policy, while others seek a more independent stance, both major parties adhere firmly to the ANZUS alliance as the foundation of Australian defence policy. This sentiment is reflected by the public. According to the 2019 Lowy poll, 72% of Australians say our alliance with the US is important for Australia's security. As we've seen, the benefits of the alliance need to be weighed up against the costs. Perhaps the most important aspect of the alliance is that Australians have felt safer because of it. As we move into a disrupted regional security environment where power relationships are shifting amidst US uncertainty about its leadership of the international system, time will tell if this sense of safety remains. Thank you for watching.